What if a man spent his entire life trying to become a father, but never actually learned how to be a father? What if his definition of legacy was not the lives he changed, the children he raised, or the family he built, but simply the number of children who carried his blood? One woman, then another, then another. Children born in different homes, different mothers, different countries. And every time life becomes difficult, he walked away. Because in his mind, the children had mothers, and mothers were supposed to take care of their children. He wanted the title of father. He just didn't want the responsibility that came with it. And the saddest part, the children grew up believing that their dad's absence was somehow normal. Until one day, one of them asked a question that nobody in the family wanted to answer. Why does dad have so many children but never have time for any of us? That question would expose a lifetime of selfish decisions.
Don't play with it, don't be dishonest. Still not understanding.
His name was David, at least. That's what we will call him. David was a man who loved the idea of legacy. He talked about it everywhere, at family gatherings, among his friends, during conversations about the future. He wanted people to remember him by that. He wanted people to say, that man had many children. He had children everywhere. To David, having many children was proof of a successful life. The more children he had, the greater his legacy would be. But there was something missing from his definition of legacy: responsibility. David had never really understood that bringing a child into the world was not an achievement in itself. A child is not a trophy. A child is not a number. A child is not evidence of a man's masculinity. A child is a human being, a life, a person who will grow up and remember who was there and who wasn't. David had children with several women. Some relationships were short. Some became marriages. Some ended badly. And some didn't really end at all. He would marry one woman, have children with her, become unhappy, and move on emotionally before properly dissolving the relationship. Then he would meet another woman and tell her he was divorced. Sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes the previous wife was still waiting for closure, still carrying the emotional and practical responsibilities of a marriage that had already ended in his mind. But David had moved on. There was always another beginning, another relationship, another woman, another promise, and eventually another child. Each time, the pattern repeated. At the beginning, he was charming. He talked about family. He talked about having children. He talked about building something meaningful. The woman believed him. Why wouldn't she? She was building a future with the man she loved. She didn't know that somewhere in David's mind, she was becoming part of a pattern that had already happened before and would happen again. When the baby arrived, David would be excited. He would take pictures, tell people about his new child, celebrate the birth, and for a while, everything looked beautiful. But parenting is not just about the excitement of a new baby. Eventually, the excitement fades. The sleepless nights begin. The nursery bills arrive. The school fees arrive. The doctor's appointments arrive. The uniforms, the food, the childcare, the birthdays, the emotional needs, the difficult conversations, the school meetings, the teenage years, the questions, the disappointments, the moments when a child simply needs their father. That was where David disappeared. He believed the mother should handle it. After all, she is the mother. That was his favorite excuse. If the mother complained about money, he said she should work harder. If she complained that the child needed him emotionally, he said she was being dramatic. If she asked him to attend a school meeting, he said he was busy. If she asked him to spend time with his child, he said he had other responsibilities. And if she became angry, he threatened to walk away completely. I have other children, he would say, as though children were replaceable, as though one child could compensate for another, as though fatherhood was a competition, as though a child who desperately wanted his father's attention could simply be told, "Your father has other children." But children don't think like adults. They don't understand complicated relationships. They don't understand divorce. They don't understand emotional immaturity. They don't understand why dad can travel across the world to see someone else but cannot attend their school event. They simply notice. And they remember. There was one boy named Daniel. He was 9 years old. Every year, his school held a special Father's Day event. Children would walk into school holding their father's hands. Some fathers arrived early. Some brought flowers. Some took photographs. Some sat through performances that lasted for long hours. Some looked exhausted from work but still came, because that was what fathers did. Daniel would watch from the side. His mother always came. Always. She sat in the chair where a father should have been sitting. She clapped. She smiled. She took pictures. She tried to make sure he didn't feel different. But Daniel knew. One year, after the event, they walked home together. He was unusually quiet. His mother asked, "Are you okay?" He nodded. Then after a long silence, he asked, "Mommy, does Daddy not like me?" His mother stopped walking. That question broke something inside her. Because what do you say to a 9-year-old? How do you explain adult responsibility without destroying a child's relationship with their father? How do you tell your child that his father's absence has nothing to do with his worth? She knelt down. "Your daddy loves you." Daniel looked at her. "Then why doesn't he come?" She had no answer, because sometimes love is not enough when responsibility is absent. And sometimes a parent can say they love their child whilst consistently behaving as though that child is not a priority. That was the contradiction David never understood. He believed providing occasional money was enough. He believed sending a birthday message was enough. He believed telling people, "Those are my children," was enough. But fatherhood isn't a statement. It's presence. It's showing up. It's listening. It's remembering. It's paying attention. It's providing. It's protecting. It's teaching. It's apologizing when you're wrong. It's being there when your child doesn't know what to do. It's sitting in the audience. It's attending parents' evening. It's answering the phone. It's knowing your child's favorite subject, knowing what they're afraid of, knowing what makes them laugh, knowing when someone or something is wrong, even when they say, "I'm fine." David knew none of these things, yet he was proud of the number of children he had. His family praised him. Look at how many children he has. He has built a big family. His name will continue. Nobody asked, who is raising those children? Who pays the bills? Who sits awake when they are sick? Who attends the school meetings? Who deals with the emotional consequences of his decisions? Who confronts them when they ask where their father is? And most importantly, who will these children become because of the example they were given? The mothers eventually began speaking up. One told him, "You can't keep having children and expecting me to carry everything." He became angry. Another asked him to contribute more consistently. He said, "If you keep disturbing me, I will leave you and the child alone." Another woman confronted him about telling his new partner that he was divorced when their marriage had never been properly dissolved. He denied everything, then moved on. There was always another woman, another relationship, another family, another beginning, but never enough accountability for the endings he left behind. David convinced himself that the women were the problem. They were too demanding, too emotional, too difficult. They wanted too much. But what they wanted was remarkably simple. They wanted the father of their children to behave like a father. Years passed, and David's legacy grew. Not in the way he imagined. He had children in different homes, children who barely knew one another, children who had different experiences of the same father. Some admired him from a distance. Some represented him. Some had stopped expecting anything from him. Some still waited for his phone calls. Some had learned not to. And then, something happened that David never anticipated. His children grew up. The little children who once waited at windows became teenagers. The teenagers became adults. And adults don't always protect the stories their parents told about themselves. They began asking questions. They began comparing experiences. They began talking to one another. And slowly, they realized something. That they had all been told a different version of the same story. Their father had always said he was a family man, but none of them had experienced him that way. One evening, several of his adult children found themselves talking. They weren't plotting revenge. They weren't trying to destroy him. They were simply trying to understand their own childhoods. One said, "I thought I was the only one." Another said, "So did I." The third said, "He told me my mother was the reason he wasn't around." Another laughed sadly. "He told me the same thing." Then came silence, because suddenly they understood. They were not isolated failures. They were children who had grown up inside the consequences of one man's repeated choices. And that was when the meaning of the legacy changed. David has spent his life trying to create a legacy through numbers, but his children were living proof that legacy isn't measured by how many people carry your blood. It is measured by what your presence or your absence does to their lives. You can have 12 children and leave 12 wounded hearts, or you can have 2 children and raise them with love, stability, accountability, and presence. The number is not the legacy. The lives are. And perhaps the greatest tragedy of all is that David still doesn't fully understand. Even after his children confronted him, he defended himself. He said he had done his best. He said life was complicated. He said the women had made things difficult. He said his children should understand that he had other responsibilities. But his children were no longer asking for excuses. They were asking him to look at the consequences, because one day, children stopped asking, "Why wasn't Dad there?" and start asking, "What did Dad's absence teach me about love? What did it teach me about responsibility? What did it teach me about family? What kind of parent will I become?" And that is where the story becomes bigger than David, because this is not only about one man. It is about an ideology. The belief that creating children is a man's legacy while raising them is someone else's responsibility. It is not. A child doesn't ask to be born. A child doesn't choose their parents. A child doesn't choose the circumstances in which they live. Adults make those decisions, and adults must be prepared to carry the consequences. To every woman listening, please don't ignore patterns because you are in love. Don't only listen to what a man says about family. Watch what he does. How does he treat his existing children? Does he take responsibility for them? Does he speak respectfully about the mothers of his children? Are his previous relationships actually dissolved? Is he honest about his marital status? Does he provide consistently? Does he show up? Does he take accountability when things go wrong? Because sometimes the best prediction of how someone will treat you tomorrow is how they are treating someone else today. And please, don't assume that having a child will make an irresponsible person responsible. A baby does not cure character. Marriage does not cure character. Another pregnancy does not cure character. Only accountability, maturity, honesty, and a genuine willingness to change can do that. And to the fathers listening, your child doesn't need your surname alone. Your child needs you. They need your time. They need your guidance. They need your consistency. They need your financial support. They need your emotional presence. They need to know that when they look into the crowd at school, there is a possibility that dad might be there. Don't confuse biological reproduction with fatherhood. Anyone can become a biological parent. Fatherhood is something you demonstrate. And if you have children you have not been present for, it is not too late to begin taking responsibility. You may not be able to change their childhood. You may not be able to recover the school events you missed. You may not be able to erase the birthdays you forgot, but you can stop adding to the absence. You can call. You can listen. You can apologize. You can contribute. You can show up. You can become consistent. Don't wait until your children become adult before you realize that they were never asking for perfection. They were asking for you. Because when everything is said and done, nobody will remember how many children you had simply because you had many. Your children will remember you for how you made them feel. They will remember whether you showed up, whether you protected them, whether you supported them, whether you listened, whether they could depend on you. That is your legacy. Not the number, not the photographs, not the stories you tell people, the lives you touched, the children you raised, the people they became. So, if you're a father listening to this and you recognize yourself in this story, don't become defensive. Stop. Think and ask yourself one honest question. If my children tell my story when I am no longer there, what will they say about me? Will they say, my father had many children? Or will they say, my father was there? Because those are two different legacies. And to every mother carrying the weight of an absent father, remember this. You cannot control another adult's choices. You can only control what you do next. Protect your children. Seek appropriate support. Build stability where you can. And don't allow someone else's irresponsibility to convince you that you are failing. You are carrying a burden that was never meant to be yours alone. And to every child who has ever wondered why their father wasn't there, his absence was never a measure of your worth. You were worthy of his presence. You were worthy of his love. You were worthy of his time. And you still are. If this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Podcast with Sheila for more real-life inspired stories, honest conversation, relationship lessons, family stories, and discussions about the issues many people experience behind closed doors but rarely talks about. Because sometimes a story doesn't just entertain us. Sometimes a story makes us stop, reflect, and change.
Real stories, real